Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Welcome everyone in this new series called Introduction to Practice. Basically what it is a series of answers, the most common answers I got from my students who begin the practice either as precepts holders or as novices. This is meant first for those entering our tradition and wanting to know where they just arrived. What are our ways? What is our tradition? So we will begin by some basics of our Zen Buddhist order or Chan Buddhist order, since it is born in Chinese Chan, which is the Chinese form of Zen. Our Chan order is called the Zen Buddhist order of Shuyun, which was a great master from the 20th century who revived all schools of Chinese Zen. One of his students was the founder of our order and did the first ordinations to the first series of priests in the Shuyun temple he built in Hawaii. He was sent to Hawaii by Master Shuyun to spread the teaching to the West. So our order is the fruit of his own karma. As we will see later, it is also the fruit of the karma of another of our great teachers, which was my own teacher, Mingzen Chakya. So they built our Chan order around certain important points. The first one is that our order is based on a teacher and student relationship. As my teacher Mingzen Chakya used to say, even the worst monk is still an external eye, and it's better than the pride and ego-driven practice we can develop if we just practice for or by our own. Another point, which is very important, is the fact that our order uses the internet as a means of communication between very distant teacher and student. It has been the case since its creation in 1997. Another important point is that our order is free of charge. You don't have to pay anything to receive the teaching of Dharma. Another important point is that, as a result, it is based on someone's own practice, and really in the path of Zen, of Chan, we are realizing that each one of us is the only one in his own path. He is the only one able to see his own mind. Of course, someone may help because he walks the same path just ahead of you. I wrote some time ago about that particularity of being together yet alone, a manifesto called the Manifesto of the Inner Mountain. in relation also to what it means to practice in a urban hermitage, as we call the place where we practice in our own homes. Generally we have a space dedicated to it, a special room dedicated to it, or at least a corner of one of the rooms in our house. And we will get into it later. So our way of practicing, as my teacher used to say, is an householder type of Zen, or as one of the great Chinese masters of the re-established Yunmen lineage used to say, Master Foyuan, we practice farming Chan, which is really practicing attention, because our art is the art of attention. That's what Chan Zen is all about, but in our day-to-day life. So it's a very simple and rooted kind of cultivation. It means also that developing attention, developing sincere practice, is just meant for the Buddha hall or the sitting or Chan hall in a monastery. It is not only meant for practice, for retreat, but it's a practice we try to be of a certain meaning in the center of our own lives, especially as Westerners. Another point is that a teacher helps a student build his own Dharma. It means that as though we have a structure which is common, a kind of vertebral column which is common of teachings and practices, each one of us has its own history, psychology, education, environment in general. He lives in a different place, maybe he speaks a different language. And of course, it is important to be able to adapt the practice to our own place where we are here and now. In one of his writings, Master Shun says that the true Bodhi Mandala, the true great stupa of enlightenment, that's that which can be venerated, if you want, is where the true Dharma is practiced. And of course, by true we mean simple and sincere practice. So the point of a teacher is not to be your master who tells you what to do all day. It's not your professor, it's not your psychologist, nothing to do with that. He is a friend on the way who, as I said before, has walked past of this path before you. Is called in Sanskrit the Kalyana Mitra, which just means a friend on the way. He is an eternal student, teaching from what he received and practices. And it's important to keep that mind of always being a student yourself, even as a teacher. In our order, we used to say that it's important to experience the teachings in our lives. Yet when we teach, we try to be rooted in some legacy teachings we received from our tradition. The teachings done primary from your life is something a great master does after he cultivated a whole life of Dharma. And it's a wonderful gift but it's a gem that must be polished during a lifetime. It is important to understand that we respect all manifestations of Buddha Dharma, and Chan isn't attached actually to one special method. Many methods can be practiced with the Chan eye, if they are part of the Buddha Dharma, of the teachings of the Buddha. And you will see many Chan monks, although they practice together Chan Pure Land, Zen Pure Land type of practice, in their practice room when they are alone can cultivate any Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana type of study and practice. So we respect all teacher to student relationships, the big lineages that are very known, but also the small ones that can be less known or less or seen as less legitimate, because that's how the Dharma is transmitted from one mind to another, from one teacher to another. And in reality, we give great importance to respecting all teachers and true practitioners, may they be Buddhists or non-Buddhists, whatever the tradition. If they cultivate and try to manifest oneness with silence through any method or any means, then we are walking on the same mountain, the same spiritual mountain. Talking about walking, another point that is important to us is the fact of going from temple to temple, as it is traditionally said. That means that although we are rooted in our own tradition, it is important when we are studying to be open to the family of Buddhism, and especially to the family of Zen. It is always a good thing to have a relationship with another Sangha. It teaches humility, and it actually helps us to know better our own practices and to see the sameness yet. As one of our patriarchs called his great poem of all Zen practices. Zen practice, as Ming Zen Chakya used to say, is very easy. Just do the first step, then continue. In reality, it is not a matter of great insights into the matter of life and death, and what was your true face before you were born. That's how we put it into words. We can have great insights, but these are natural consequences of a right practice. Yet we are easily captured by them, and we should absolutely not try to cultivate insights per se for themselves, but cultivate attention. That's our real goal. Again, the art of Chan is the art of attention. In our tradition, we say that Zen is the Eightfold Path in a direct and practical way. My teacher used to summarize it saying that Zen is going from right view to right action, directly, to see what is needed in this world and then to act from it, without an inch of our own ego. So it is beyond concentration itself. Our point is not only to sit on a cushion and to be happy with our own suffering. There is a need, and need to manifest in this very world the fruit of our practice. So, in our tradition, we don't cultivate nonsense and long and philosophical and difficult talks about reincarnation, nirvana, what it is and what is not. We can talk about it sometimes, especially when we are asked. But really, Zen is action. And action is karma. That's what it means. So wake up. That's what my teacher used to say too. A teacher recently also, a student, recently also asked me a very interesting question. I thought I should add it to this part of the introduction. The question being, are we lay or monks? Of course, our order was founded by monks in a monastery of legitimate monks following the Vinaya or the 250 rules that are traditional. And we will talk about the different sets of precepts and all that too later in this series. But yes, we are laymen. We are lay Buddhists, which are called Upasaka generally in Sanskrit. And we took the 5 precepts of lay Buddhists. And then we added to it the precepts of Bodhisattva. So 48 precepts. So our teachers are laymen who took extra precepts. And it is very common in our Chinese Buddhist traditions. In our Chinese Buddhist tradition, we are not recognized as monk, but as lay Dharma teachers. That's what we are. It is important to understand that the Dharma of teaching of Zen is non-religious per se. Actually, religion is a personal matter. It depends. Do you yourself put some religiosity into your spiritual practice? It is not a bad thing per se. And if I had to answer that question, I would say probably yes, due to my own education and history. There is a part of religiosity in my practice, but is there a part of religiosity that is in essence in Zen? I would answer no, not at all. The one thing that is important is a great faith. A great faith meaning a great confidence in what you might say. Well, in life, in reality itself, in this very moment. Nothing else. And that's the most universal kind of faith you could have. So it is very secular. And our order is a secular order in some ways because we accept all people from all traditions and backgrounds. And what our lay Dharma teachers, which are called priests and not monks, share is a practice. And it's just this, a practice of attention. Of course, included in this practice is liturgy, and some people may have a problem with liturgies and Buddha statues and whatever. Well, you need to know that liturgy and Buddhas and bodhisattvas can be seen as allegories or archetypes of the human mind and its different aspects and functions, in the same kind of way that sometimes Freemasonry can see, can use different rituals and hidden meanings and whatever. Well, when you see Buddhas and offerings on the altar and complicated chants, generally there is a very easy meaning, a very pragmatic meaning, I want to say. So practice is structured around a small liturgy, a small meditation period composed of sitting and walking. And that very liturgy is itself centered around four main parts. The first one is to take refuge, to simply bow and acknowledge that we are part of a whole, that the whole world is not around ourselves, is not around our own belly. Then we chant the Heart Sutra, which is just a philosophical text that is essential to us, and I won't go into it now. It acts as an anti-poison, if I might say, liberating us from the very views we could have and grow on Dharma while we are studying it. Then we chant to Kuan Yin, to Kannon, to Avalokita, which is the Bodhisattva of great compassion. And our order is really linked to Kuan Yin. And finally, we transfer the merit of all this not to ourselves, to just our families or our friends, but to every sentient being in all directions. So, this liturgy and this practice really is there to remind us to pay attention to our mind and to act in a way that manifests our true nature. And there is really nothing religious about that. Again, there can be religiosity in the practice, and it depends on what degree will you put some religiosity in your practice. But it doesn't need to be religious. For example, if you have really a problem with the sight of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and all that kind of beings that are not part of our Western background, they may not directly appeal to your psyche, to your mind. You might just put a big stone on your altar, something symbolizing nature, something symbolizing something to you, which could be very secular. You might also put a white circle on a black surface and frame it. And that is the round circle of our own minds, which includes the whole universe, the light of the bright moon, which enlightens the dark night. So, there is a way to cultivate our own appeal for religiosity in our past if you need it. But per se, our order is an order of lay teachers and is totally secular and open to everyone. And I think it was very important to emphasize that aspect. Thank you for beginning this series. And don't hesitate to ask questions to your Dharma teacher. Have a wonderful day. Ami Topha.